I lived in Florida for 19 years and I've lived in Georgia for 23 years, and that's crazy because I'm only 25 years old. Just kidding. I'm getting a ton of calls from people who are from Florida and they're thinking about moving to North Georgia specifically. Lots of people are looking to move to either Florida or Georgia, and this video, maybe you're watching it because you're considering one or the other. In this video, I'm going to be giving you reasons why people choose to move to either Florida or Georgia for a number of reasons: real estate, weather, taxes, all kinds of good stuff. So stay tuned. I hope you enjoy the video. Hey, my name is Tim Gibson and my channel is all about moving to North Georgia. I am a residential realtor in North Georgia. If you have not subscribed already, go ahead and subscribe to my channel so you can keep track of living in North Georgia and all the great videos I've got for you. And of course, if you're thinking about moving to the area, please reach out. My contact info is right here on the screen. We're going to compare Georgia and Florida. Are you ready? Before we dive into comparing Florida versus Georgia, I just want to go ahead and get this out of the way. We're talking about two entire states and we're comparing the two. So naturally, I'm going to be making generalizations based on my experience in living in both states and from what I've heard from residents that are thinking about moving to Georgia from Florida or vice versa. Of course, in a short YouTube video, there's no way I can dive into really great depth on any certain subject. We're just going to be keeping it very surface level. But this hopefully will give you a good idea of what to expect if you were to move to one of these states. Naturally, different parts of each state, Florida and Georgia, can be vastly different from another part of the state. So we're just going to keep it very basic, very surface level so you can get a basic idea. So now that we've gotten that out of the way, let's just go ahead and dive into reasons why you would want to move to Georgia versus Florida. I would say one of the first major reasons why you'd want to move to Georgia, being in Atlanta, living in Atlanta or somewhere close to Atlanta, you are close to one of the busiest airports in the world. And from Atlanta, you can get anywhere in the world relatively easily on an airplane. Of course, Florida does have some major airports as well, but comparing any of the major airports in Florida, like Miami or Jacksonville or Orlando, wouldn't even really be a comparison because Atlanta's airport is just such a major hub for international flights. A lot of people choose to live close to Atlanta so they can be close to their job at one of these Fortune 500 companies in Florida. And there are a couple I can think of off the top of my head. Number one is CSX. CSX is a rail-based freight transportation company, and Publix, which is a large supermarket retail chain. And real estate related, Lennar Homes is based out of Florida, which is one of America's largest home builders. One of my favorite things about living in Georgia, North Georgia specifically, is the weather. I grew up in Florida and there are basically two seasons in Florida, let's be honest. Number one is hot. And the other season in Florida is less hot. I remember being a kid and it being like Christmas Day and we would be playing outside, shorts and t-shirts, and it being like 80 degrees on Christmas Day. That being said, it did snow one time when I was a kid in Florida. I think it was 1990, one time. In Georgia, we have 4 seasons, but really we have 12 seasons. Number one is winter. We've all heard of winter. Number 2, we have fool's spring. You think that it's turning into springtime around March or April. It gets up to about, I don't know, maybe 60, 70 degrees one day. And then, bam, you're hit with second winter when you get probably snow in March or something like that. Then you have the spring of deception, which is very close to fool's spring, but you're deceived because you might get a few days in a row of warm weather. And then, guess what? You get third winter. And after third winter, one of the worst times of the year in Georgia is the pollinating, when everything turns yellow because every single plant in Georgia decides to release pollen and cover everything. Then you have actual spring, which might last for a week or two. Then you go straight into summer. We've all heard of summer's great. And from summer, we go into a season called Hell's Front Porch, when it's about 1,000 degrees outside. And from Hell's Front Porch, we go to False Fall. False Fall's great because you get a nice mild day in the 70s, maybe high 60s, and you're thinking, oh man, this is awesome. The humidity's dying down, this is gonna be great. And then you get hit with second summer, where it goes up to about 1,000 degrees again. Then you go to actual fall, which lasts for a couple weeks, and then you're right back into winter. I would be remiss if in the weather section, I did not mention hurricanes. Around August, September, October even, you got hurricane season in Florida, and hurricanes are no joke. They are not to be messed with. I do remember plenty of hurricanes coming close when I was a kid, but nothing actually hit directly where I lived when I was in Florida. But man, it really messed some things up, and a lot of people have had some major catastrophes and loss of life and loss of property, all kinds of stuff in Florida. So that is definitely something to consider if you're thinking about moving to Florida. Georgia, we do get the remnants of some of these hurricanes sometimes, especially if something hits the panhandle of Florida and keeps tracking north. But by the time it gets to North Georgia, it's typically a tropical depression, 40, 50 mile an hour winds for a day or so. A lot less than if a major hurricane strikes the coast of Florida. By contrast, Georgia can have a bit of a tornado season. Early spring, you can typically have the threat of tornadoes. The likelihood of being hit by a tornado, I would imagine, is probably pretty low. I don't have any stats on that, but something to consider there as well. Florida has sunny beach weather. We go on vacation to Florida. A lot of people from Georgia go on vacation to Florida to enjoy the sunny beaches, just like people from all over the country really spend time in Florida on vacation. So yes, that is a major positive for living in Florida. Georgia, we have more of a moderate climate depending on where you are, especially in North Georgia. One thing to mention, Florida has moderate winters, of course, and I still have Florida blood in me. So, you know, if it gets below 50 degrees, I am freezing cold, and that's just the way it is. I guess something happens when you live in Florida, grow up in Florida, and it just gets in your blood. Georgia, in the winter time, you have to worry about snowpocalypse events. It's kind of a joke, but people in Georgia do not know how to drive in the snow. We don't have the infrastructure to deal with snow. We don't have a lot of salt trucks. It snows pretty infrequently in Georgia, but when it does, just stay inside. Don't even go anywhere. Nobody knows how to drive. Everybody's freaking out. All the shelves in the grocery stores are empty. And if you have snow in Georgia, it lasts for maybe a couple of days. And in the annual game between Georgia and Florida, Georgia actually has the advantage. They have 54 wins to Florida's 44. So Florida better catch up. Since college football is so huge, I want to just run down a couple of the college football programs between the two states. Let's go with Georgia first. University of Georgia has 3 national championships. Georgia Tech has 4 claimed national championships, which is interesting because they have not been a football powerhouse for quite some time. University of Florida claims 3 national championships. Florida State University claims 3 national championships. And last but not least, the University of Miami, which was just so dominant in the 90s, early 2000s, they claim 5 national championships. So if you're just going solely by national championships in college football, Florida has a clear advantage. Are you ready for everyone's favorite subject next? Taxes. Yay. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this next subject because no one wants to talk about taxes, but a major consideration for moving to Florida is that there is no state income tax for individuals. And Georgia does have a state income tax, and it usually lands somewhere around 5.75%. Of course, everybody's situation is different, and you would definitely need to consult with a CPA to determine what you would pay in taxes. I'm not an accountant. Take that for what it's worth. There's no way to possibly compare all of the cities in Georgia versus all the cities in Florida real estate-wise. So we're just going to take the largest city in each state and compare the two. Naturally, the largest state in Georgia is Atlanta, and the largest metro area in Florida is Miami. They both have a similar population, so that's what we're going to go with. Average real estate for average home price in Atlanta, you could expect to pay somewhere around $401,000. And in the Miami metro area, the average price is somewhere around $562,000. So as you can see, it's a little cheaper to buy a house in Atlanta versus Miami. That being said, if you choose to move to a more rural area, either in Florida or Georgia, you can naturally expect to pay less on average for a house in a rural area. That's just to give you a basic overview. Both states have a lot to offer. The major cities in Georgia, you have Atlanta, you have Savannah, you have Macon, Columbus, and Augusta. And Florida, you have Miami, Orlando, Jacksonville, and Tampa. So lots to choose from, of course, in either state. Both great places to live because I've lived in both. Like I said, this video is just a general overview of each state, just to give you an idea. One thing I didn't mention is that both states have mosquitoes. After seeing all the stuff about hurricanes and everything else, don't you want to move to North Georgia? I would. So after seeing all of this, I know you want to move to North Georgia. So if you're thinking about moving to North Georgia, give me a call. Tell me what you thought about the video. Of course, this is going to be super general, but leave a comment if there's something I didn't cover or anything you want to add to the conversation. Have a great day, and we'll see you on the next video.